This is another video from the Angry Photographer. Now these lenses, which are FX prime lenses, are not applicable for use on D3000 or 5000 series DX cameras, rather for the Nikon D7000, 7100, and 7200, and a few other DX crop sensor cameras. As is the case, price fluctuates on some lenses. Unfortunately, I've been the cause for price fluctuation on some lenses, like the 135mm f2.8. However, this is its cousin, the 135mm f3.5. We're going to talk about best budget bang for your buck lenses to consider for the purchase of your DX camera. Now, we're not going into specifically macro or telephoto primes, but in other words, if you have the capacity to hunt down basically $150 or less, which encompasses normally, which encompasses all of these lenses, and you want to find the best option for the bang for your buck for your Nikon D7000 or other series camera other than a D3000 or 5000 series, it would be these lenses. Now let's run down the line. That'd be the Nikkor 135mm f3.5, a 4-element prime lens. Typically, however, I unfortunately have affected the price of this lens somewhat used. Used to be able to get it for $90 all day long. I actually found one for someone just the other day for $90 in great shape that he snapped right up. Second lens, which still can be had for quite a deal. Top recommendation without question, bar none, 105mm f2.5 Nikkor Prime. Typically $130, $150, depends on the condition. Third recommendation, in no particular order, but as I mentioned in the prior video, the Nikkor 50mm f2. Questionably the first or second toughest lens that Nikon has ever made. AI, AIS, and everything after that up to currently. Typically can be had for $50, $60, sometimes quite often $45. Make sure it is an AI or AIS lens, because most of the Nikkor 50mm f2s are non-AI and will not mount on your current DX camera. Third, if you want necessarily an autofocus, like I said, these 50mm are going to be the equivalent of roughly 75mm on your APC crop sensor mode. Perfect portrait lens, perfect normal lens, and arguably, as is the case, as I mentioned before, half of the spectrum of the lenses that you do own as you start to collect them, if you do, should be prime lenses. So if you've amassed an enormous amount of telephoto lenses like is currently sitting on the D7100, you need to diversify, because getting the best out of your DX camera, whether it's a 3000, 5000, or 7000 series, necessitates, unquestionably so and logically so, the purchase of at least a couple few primes. Ultimately, if you plan on progressing and expanding what you have in the way of lenses, half of your lenses roughly should be prime lenses. Fourth lens recommended in no particular order would be the 50mm f1.8D. It's an autofocus screw drive Nikkor. Like I said, this is a screw drive lens, so the Nikon D3000 and 5000 series cannot autofocus drive this lens. Like I said before in a prior video, one of the advantages in considering the purchase of a DX camera is the fact that, well, the DX 3000, 5000 series are cheaper, but ultimately they're more expensive in the sense that the 7000 series DX camera has the ability to meter old, back to the 1970s and just a hair before that, old AI and AIS lenses, and has the ability with an internal autofocus drive motor to drive D-series screw drive lenses like this 50mm f1.8 D-series lens. So these are your options. Like I said, all of these lenses typically are $150 or less. And these are top considerations for the purchase of your D7000, 7100, 7200, and a few other Nikon crop sensor cameras. 135mm f3.5, I would recommend the 2.8, however its price has gone up drastically. Unfortunately, I believe that's my fault. The 105mm Nikkor f2.5, 50mm f2. While it's not the fastest 50mm out there, I can assure you that 99% of the time that is more than enough that you'll ever need. A lot of people think they need a serious mistake a lot of photographers make is they think they need a much faster lens than they really ever do use. Now, sometimes that is necessary and important, and there are considerations for that. But for 99.9% of you, it's not a consideration. You're not a wedding photographer. You don't necessarily need extremely shallow depth of field, and you don't need to consider, as an amateur budding photographer or even an advanced amateur, the necessity of purchasing very expensive fast glass. F2 back in the day was very fast, and it still is fast. Light has not changed since the dawn of time, so but there is a mind virus in people's head that they need to purchase extremely fast Nikon glass, and that is not the case. As you advance and start doing wedding photography and pay gigs, that would be the case, but then you could write it off on your taxes and other things. But anyway, those are the choices, and I hope this video helped you. And remember that in the purchase of your Nikon DX camera, that you drastically consider broadening your horizons, that the superior lens may in fact most definitely, most of the time, actually is the case, is not a DX lens, but rather a purchase of an FX lens. Thanks for watching so much. If you like this video, you could always make a small donation. If not, that's fine too. I'm glad to help, and I'll catch you later.